I mentioned there in terms of something you'd written recently, which was what really sparked the idea for this conversation, and that was an article you wrote for the Cipher Brief that was titled "The U.S. Intelligence Community Needs a Wild Bill Moment." And I thought maybe we could just dive straight into talking about that article, and maybe you can unpack that a little bit and explain for our audience who aren't familiar perhaps with Wild Bill and who he was, and where you're sort of trying to take that conversation in terms of how you see intelligence developing now and in the future.
Wild Bill Donovan.
Yeah.
For your listeners who may not be familiar who he really is the founder of the United States intelligence community in the way we know it. I was actually serving as Assistant Secretary of State at INR, and I was just doing a little bit of, I was actually reading a book on Wild Bill Donovan, and I actually participate in a society, the OSS Society, that actually supports Wild Bill Donovan, those who were part of his team during World War II, and tries to celebrate our history, the history that Wild Bill Donovan actually was the father of. And so as I was doing some research, I learned that the Bureau of Intelligence and Research at State Department actually was the only operational component left from the OSS. So Wild Bill Donovan met with President Truman back early during World War II, and President Truman invested in this small capability that was separate from the rest of government, that was supposed to be engaged in special operations and intelligence. And Wild Bill, just like his name, built that capability. And for many of us, we believe that was what turned the tide of World War II. It was a combination of great research and great operations. But at the end of World War II, not surprisingly, the bureaucracy that existed wasn't a big fan of Wild Bill. So Herbert Hoover at the FBI and the State Department, they were not fans of the OSS. And unfortunately, President Roosevelt passed away. President Truman became the president. The OSS was disestablished, and there was one group that remained, and that was the Bureau of Research and Analysis from the OSS, which moved to state. And so I learned then that it was actually my very own bureau, INR, which actually was the first analytic unit in the intelligence community. And that's not how I understood history. I always believed it was CIA. Not the case. It started at INR.
That's fascinating.
And so very much, I believe that if you want new ideas, you've got to read an old book. And so I believe history is an incredible platform for how you should look into the future. And so getting back to this article, as I was sitting here relaying to my co-author, Matt, about the lessons I learned at INR and how our INR was very much steeped in the culture and the history of the OSS. Even to this day, I said, we need another Wild Bill Donovan moment. I mean, our community was developed to work a different threat, to work with different data, to work with different tools. It's become this huge bureaucracy that is not as innovative as it could be. And we try so many different ways to introduce new technologies and new capabilities. But I really think we need President Roosevelt, or in this case, President Biden, to consider, establishing a new OSS-like capability that was parallel but separate, to bring in new capabilities, new ways of doing things, a new culture.
Thanks for watching this podcast extract. Now listen to the full episode at janes.com/podcast.